AITA for supporting my son's decision to disinvite his stepmother from his bar mitzvah. My ex and I have been divorced for 7 years. We have 3 children, Amy 17, Tom 16 and Ben 14. Our divorce was amicable, and we cooperate well for the most part. I am a non-observant Jew and my ex is a non-practicing Catholic. We decided to teach our children to be decent people and allow them to decide what faith, if any, they wanted when we're old enough. My ex remarried 2 years ago, and they have a 6-month-old daughter. She is a devout Christian, non-denominational. Since she came into their lives, she has actively tried to convert them. I wouldn't have an issue if she was just inviting them to church, but she is constantly telling them that if they do not accept Christ as their Savior, they will go to hell, as will me and my family. After this, my children refused to see their dad, unless it was outside of his home, without her. Their dad finally put his foot down and put an end to it. Now, on to the problem. My parents went to Poland a few months ago to visit family and took my children with them. While there, my dad took them to Auschwitz and Ben was very moved. When he came home, he started attending temple with my father, and has been working with his rabbi to prepare for his bar mitzvah. He is having a small party afterwards at my parents' house. When his stepmother heard this, she really ramped up the crazy. She waited until my ex was not home, and invited a bunch of people from her church over, and they ambushed Ben. They tried to lay hands on him to save him from the fires. My daughter physically intervened, called an Uber and took her brothers home. My ex stopped by a couple of hours later and apologized profusely for what had happened. My son accepted his apology, but stated that his stepmother was no longer welcome at his bar mitzvah, or the party afterwards. My ex got very upset by this and stated that this was being disrespectful, and he could not go somewhere where his wife was not welcome. My son said, "Well, I guess you're not invited either then." He then locked himself in his room. My ex, his parents, and his wife have all been texting and calling, berating me. When my parents found out what had happened, they stated that his wife was not welcome in their home. But they told my son that he should still allow his father to come. My ex is adamant that he will not come without his wife, and my son is adamant that his wife is not invited. I refuse to intervene on his wife's behalf, and my ex says I am an asshole. Am I? Just a few things for clarification. I'm trying to respond to all comments, but there's getting to be too many, so thank you everyone for your input. I plan on showing this to my ex. No, she wasn't like this when he married her. She went to church. But it wasn't until they got married that she became more involved. I was actually surprised that she was with him, knowing that he was not religious but figured opposites attract. In the beginning, she was great with our kids. They liked her and spent a lot of time with them. Her pushing my kids towards Christianity was little things like insisting they bow their heads for grace at mealtimes, buying them books by religious authors, not allowing what she deemed inappropriate movies, Harry Potter, anything with profanity, hanging up religious pictures, and signs with Bible verses in the house, etc. Once she started with the "you're going to hell if you don't" nonsense, I got their dad involved and it ended. At least for a while. Their dad is very supportive of our sons embracing Judaism. He is paying for private Hebrew lessons and has offered to send him to Israel the summer after high school, providing it is safe to go. My ex and I met our freshman year of college. We were together a few years before getting married, and only got married because our first was on the way, and both of our sets of parents were very insistent that we do so. My parents, especially, were very big on the legal aspect of it for my protection. We separated after almost 20 years of being together, because we had started to become unhappy together, and despite counseling, could not resolve some of our differences. There was no infidelity or anything like that. We only got divorced when he met his current wife so that they could marry. We had no formal custody agreement in place. My parents have me seeing a lawyer next week to put some parameters into place and protect everyone involved. He promised that the kids don't have to be around his wife until they are ready to be. I asked then, why is it a big deal that he doesn't want her at the ceremony and party? His response is that he wants the invitation extended, but he will make sure that she won't go. He says it's disrespectful and a snub to not invite her. I told him that that sounded like a big bunch of BS, and that she was not going to be no matter what. Edited for punctuation and spelling. Update: Sunday, my ex asked if I would be willing to come over and discuss what happened. He said he felt there were some misunderstandings that needed to be resolved. I went, along with my daughter and oldest son. They asked to go. Anyway, when I got there was another couple there who I was introduced to as her pastor and his wife. I was immediately on guard. Stepmother stated that all she and her church group had wanted to do was pray for my children. She stated that she felt that raising them with no religion had done them a great disservice, and that I didn't understand all of the consequences of doing this. She stated that, since she had had her daughter, she realized how horrible it would be to be separated in heaven from the people she loved more than anything in the world. I said I did not believe that would happen, as I believed if there was any type of afterlife, one of the perks would be that you would be reunited with people that you loved. She then stated that it would have to be this way as my children had not accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Then she started to cry. I gently suggested to her that she was still postpartum, and that it was possible that her hormones and emotions were heightened, and that she was not seeing things clearly. That was obviously the wrong thing to say, because then she and my ex both became angry with me, and told me that I was trying to make her out to be a crazy person. Her pastor quoted a few Bible verses, and attempted to expand on what she had said. The whole time my ex just sat there silently. I finally asked him what he thought about all of this, and he said that his wife meant well, and that she was only concerned with our kids' souls. I asked him when he had become so religious as during our 20 years together. He had not so much stepped inside of a church outside of a few weddings we'd attended. He stated that their having their daughter had made him realize how important choosing a faith was. I told him that our son had chosen, it just happened to be Judaism instead of Christianity. I also said it was my understanding that it was the same God for both. The pastor then again chimed in stating that Jesus was the true Messiah, and that Jews would be punished both in this life and the afterlife, for denying that. At that point my daughter stood up and stated that this whole discussion was making her sick. My older son said that he was tired of dealing with all of his stepmother's bullshit, and he would never step foot into their home again. He said over the years, he had ignored a lot as both myself and his dad had encouraged him to be tolerant of people's beliefs. But as nobody was being tolerant of his or his siblings' beliefs, he was done dealing with their hypocrisy. He told his dad that he had no desire to either talk or see him or his wife for the foreseeable future. We then left. Today I met with the family lawyer that my parents had found for me. He said that tomorrow we are going to go to the courthouse for a temporary restraining order, and to ask for an emergency custody order. He says we'll get both. He also had me go to the police department today, and make a report with all 3 of my children about what happened last week. I am so sick that it has come to this. I never wanted my children to be put in the middle of battling families. I am aware, as so many of you pointed out, that I underreacted. To be honest, this is the first time in my life I have really ever dealt with anything like this. I grew up in an incredibly diverse community, where everyone was tolerant of everyone else, and when my ex and I were married, we returned and lived in that community, as we felt it was a fantastic place to raise children. So, that's that. I want to thank everyone for all of their support and for those who pointed out that I was being naive for being kind about it. I'm sorry I could not respond to everyone personally, including all of the private messages I was sent. There were just so many. Never expected this to blow up so hard. Comments. Comment 1. Being Jewish myself, what this stepmother did to Ben is legitimately a nightmare for me. It was bad enough cutting friends off when they tried to tell me I'd be going to hell and needed to convert. If someone who was basically family not only did that but organized a whole lay hands thing. I'm not at all surprised that Ben has trauma for it, and everyone insisting she have access to him is just, I have no words. Only anger. OOP has absolutely been making the correct calls in forbidding stepmother from being around her kids and for standing by Ben, as well as getting him into therapy. I dearly hope Ben never has to see that woman again and continues being supported in his religious journey. So glad he has OOP on his side. Comment 2. Wakey. So the grandparents only live 15 minutes away, yet they want the kids for 5 days over Zmaz break. That makes me very suspicious. Also, no way would I be leaving my house every other weekend for him to stay there. I wouldn't trust him in my house, and his kids not wanting to go to his house is a consequence of his own inaction. He shouldn't be accommodated for it. Update. The people responding to that first post helped me to see that I was underreacting, and I met with a lawyer for a custody order, as we had just done our own thing. I now have full decision-making for our children's religious upbringing, and full custody. X's visitation every other weekend. I have been incredibly flexible and let him take them pretty much whenever he or the kids want. On his weekend I stay with my parents and he stays in the house. Only rule I made was the stepmother is not around them at all. Ever. My kids are very close with their paternal grandparents. GPs know that stepmother is not to be around them, but twice when I picked them up she was there. Excuse was that she had just popped in quickly to drop off the baby. I asked them to let me know when they were sitting and we would plan a different day. But they said that it was a last-minute thing. Okay, fine. Fine. They want them to come for a 5-day visit over Christmas break. Not 24/25ths. And I cannot trust that this woman will not come over. Ben still gets incredibly anxious with her. Yes, he is in therapy. My in-laws refuse to tell her that she cannot come over because they say they do not want to be put in the middle, and that it's making them choose between their grands. I reached out to my ex, who said that since she isn't coming over for long, he's not stopping it. He also said that there is nothing in the order that she can't be around. And as his wife and mom of their sibling, there's no reason that she should have to tiptoe around. He was incredibly dismissive. And I went nuclear on him. I told him that I have been letting him see them whenever, despite only having 2 weekends a month, that he was married to a sociopathic zealot, and that if she continued to come around I would go back to court and ask for supervised visits and a restraining order against her. He hung up. Then I asked the kids what they wanted. Come to find out, the woman has been coming around a lot. Amy said their grandparents asked them not to say anything to not upset me. I told my daughter that as an adult she can go, but that her brothers would not be. Ben's look of relief broke my heart. Amy said, and she felt weird when Steph showed up. Tom said, has Ben called, told her that the children not be coming back until they chose to. I said they were welcome to come over to see them. I said they were so wrong to ask the kids to keep secrets. They called my ex, who berated me for punishing his parents. Stepmom sent me a text saying I was unfair. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for telling my son stepdad he'll never be his father and causing a screaming fight? I, 31 male, have split custody of my son Marcus, 12 male, with my ex Lena, 30 female. Lena and I split up shortly after he was born, and stayed friends, but have been less communicative since she married Eric, 42 male, 4 years ago. We have had disagreements. I don't approve of certain things they've been doing, and they think I spoil him, but until recently we managed to keep things civil. Marcus is a great kid and I love him. He's smart, funny and caring, and he's taught me so much about being a human. Having him saved my life and changed it for the better. He's also more or less my only family, so I really treasure him and our time together. Recently he's gotten chubby and depressed, which I only mention because it's relevant. I was concerned over my son gaining weight, but I didn't want to do much other than making sure we eat healthy. He's still active in sports, which I encourage, and a lot will change with puberty. His mom and stepdad are upset though, and I now know that they had Marcus on a restricted diet, and are putting a lot of pressure on him to lose weight. At first it didn't seem like much, but it became more unreasonable, e.g. Before this incident I got in trouble with Eric for buying Marcus a size up in clothes, since he thought that he should trim down to fit his old ones better. I told him that I wasn't going to apologize for giving my son pants. He never responded. Last week when I came to pick him up, Marcus was still packing his bag. Lena invited me inside for coffee, and we were making small talk when I heard shouting. Apparently Marcus had been hiding snacks in his room. Eric found candy bars in his overnight bag, which they no longer allow in the house, and pulled them out to show to us as evidence. I got upset when he called Marcus names, and told him he wouldn't be fat if he weren't so greedy, and told him to treat my son with respect. Marcus went to the car, and things devolved. I said the thing in the title, called him a bully, and a lot of expletives got thrown around. I didn't hear from Lena until later when she texted to tell me that she was furious with me. I was still reeling from everything, so the conversation is a blur. I tried to tell her I was sorry, but that I couldn't understand why she would allow him to treat Marcus that way. She told me that while was a bit much, Marcus broke their rules and Eric was right that he should lose weight. She also told me that I don't know anything about the disrespect Marcus gives them, that I only experience the fun parts of being a parent, and accused me of encouraging bad behavior that she has to deal with. I had a talk with Marcus and told him I love him, and he has nothing to be ashamed of. He seems better, but I'm not looking forward to taking him back to his mom's home. I know I made things worse and I should have removed myself from the situation, but I wouldn't feel right if I didn't at least stand up for my son. AITA? Comments. Comment 1. Even if the kid is fat, starving them is the easiest way to have the kid develop issues with food for the future. I grew up chronically food insecure, skipping, and despite being out of that situation for decades, I order far more food than I eat, and leave nothing left over. Comment 2. I hated everyone trying to tell him he's the fun dad. And what do you do for discipline when the situation in question is how you end up with eating disorders and a depressed kid trying to commit suicide because it is abuse? There is nothing about this situation that requires discipline. I was in his position and God, I wish that I had a parent like OP. I have anorexia as a result of my parents doing exactly that. Eating disorders also kill people. Honestly, I don't care that OP got into a screaming match when his son's stepfather is literally abusing him. Update 1. This is a lot of responses very fast, and I thank you for the support, suggestions, and the brutal honesty. I do think I was wrong to escalate the situation and not remove myself sooner. There's a lot of things I need to do as a father, and I value all of your feedback. I do want to respond to something. I've had a few people in the comments tell me that Eric is my son's other dad by virtue of being in that house and married to my ex. But I guess my problem is that I don't think he should be. I would be more than happy to welcome another parental figure in my kid's life. I don't think I have a monopoly on being dad or anything. But as it stands, my child hates and fears him, and I do not think anyone who does that to my child deserves to call themselves his parent. I felt the same way about my bio parents, and I refuse to acknowledge them as my family. So I guess that's where that comment about him not being my son's dad came from. That being said, I know I'm in the wrong for shouting at him out of anger instead of trying to be the adult, and this does nothing to help my son. I also don't want anyone blaming any of this on my son, or suggesting that he's being a dick to his mom and stepdad. He's 12 and children act out of distress when adults treat them poorly or fail them, myself included. He's the only person in this situation who's not at fault. I will keep trying to talk to my ex, get counseling for my son, and seek out legal advice. Update 2. Up to. Many pointed out the way my Lena and Eric treat my son would push him towards disordered eating or could be malnutrition. Unfortunately, it seems to be some degree of both. I learned more what they let Marcus eat 900-1000 cal days recommended 2500 for active preteens, which pushed him to sneak food. The humiliation is also constant behind closed doors. I fear there's more he's afraid to tell me. He's physically okay, according to pediatrician, but hurt. I'm trying to make sure he knows he has nothing to be ashamed of, and that the person who should be ashamed is the one who did this. Other things at my ex's house. Eric apparently often starts nasty fights with Marcus. He has also said some pretty demeaning, disturbing things about my background, which is unsurprising. His mom gets shouted down when she tries to defend him. She both sides the situation afterwards, holding husband and child equally responsible. Lena reached out to apologize. She said that she knows Eric was wrong and promised to try and talk sense to him. I told her this wasn't enough and asked why she went along with it. She seemed to wake up when I told her that they seriously hurt Marcus, and agreed that their behavior was unacceptable, but begged me to let her try and fix it. She seemed really tired and unwell and completely different from my former friend. I asked if she feels safe at home. She wouldn't give me a straight answer but promised that she's not physically unsafe, and will seek help if needed. I feel for her but no longer trust her. I recorded the call just in case we're in a one-party consent country, and will keep gathering evidence. Honestly, I'm scared. I was failed badly by social services courts as a kid, so I don't have faith in them. It's also complicated because Lena and I never married. I'm a legal guardian, but we had Marcus as teens with no support and there's a complex history. I'm saving details for the lawyer to get advice specific to my situation. But I'm not letting Eric near my son.